Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below, your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Please reach out to me directly. Email tmosso@thewatchbox.com for pricing details. Today, we're discussing one of the best Zenith timepieces from the 2000s. This is the Zenith Grande Chronomaster Open, a watch that incorporates a lot of the best changes made by CEO and President Terry Nataf during this period. Now, Nataf is a controversial guy, both for the watches that he oversaw. He considered himself the company's chief designer, as well as for his larger-than-life persona, which rubs some people the wrong way. But he was undoubtedly an auteur of the era, and the watches he created are distinctively different even today. This is one of the best, as it combines his famous open dial with the 1990s Chronomaster case, albeit in a larger size. So, in rose gold, this watch is 45 millimeters in diameter, 14.2 millimeters thick from lug tip to lug tip, 53.5 millimeters, with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. Now, we're going to throw this watch on my wrist so you can get a look at it. I actually fell in love with a version of this watch years back, and I thought it wore fine on my wrist. You can see it's big, but my hand and my wrist are actually larger than they often look in these videos, and I could wear this just fine. Down the barrel, the lugs are out to the edge of my wrist, but they're not over, so I could recommend this watch for a wrist my size or larger, so 16 centimeters circumference or larger. The watch isn't particularly thin, but it does have a dramatically sloped case flank, so it will fit underneath the dress cuff. Now, I talked about some of the changes Terry Nataf made for the best, and one of them was the proliferation of folding clasps through the collection. Prior to his arrival around the new millennium, I believe he became president and CEO in 2001, Zenith used a lot of pin buckles, even on flagship watches like the Chronomaster series. Under Nataf, we got a lot more of these folding clasps, and they are very substantial. The gold components are thick and heavy. You can see they offer extra security against dropping your watch, and the way all of this works, it's surprisingly involved for a clasp from the period. There's a locking mechanism internally that will crimp the strap inside the buckle and then lock it in place rather than simply hold it with a pin. That's a degree of security you don't expect on a conventional deploying clasp, and it gives you more security against dropping the watch. You can see how the shoulders of the buckle have a little bit of a fluting that matches the profile of the lugs. And here too you can see some of Nataf's best changes. Prior to his arrival, most Zenith watches, even flagships, even precious metal, often had hollow lugs with perforations for strap tools. He replaced those with solid lugs. He also inaugurated an era of larger cases in the Chronomaster series, but he kept the basic design from 1994. As you can see, we have a double gadroon style that is double domed bezel. We have fluting on the lug shoulders, so they don't look as massive. Everything's in high polish. It's a very glamorous aesthetic. It's designed to catch the eye. We have lozenge-style, vintage-inspired chronograph pushers and a Zenith star on the crown. Now, the dial of the watch sits underneath a boxed and cambered sapphire, which is anything but cheap as sapphires go. And we have a lot going on. We have a tachymeter outboard, so you can use the chronograph in conjunction with the tachymeter to gauge the speed of a car over a kilometer if you're watching speed trials at Bonneville, for example. Then we have several different guilloche type patterns with a dental type pattern outboard of the hour track. You can see that there's a frosted opaline style matte finish for the silvered tachymeter. Then we have a brushed concentric pattern underneath the hour track, which includes applied rose gold Roman numerals, including a watchmaker's 4. Inboard, we have a sort of cross-hatching pattern for the center dial, and then a rosette pattern for the chronograph minutes register. We have lovely and extended, particularly fine Dauphine-style hands for the power reserve indicator, the hours, and the minutes. And then we have a lovely counterweighted lancet-style rolled and cambered seconds hand. The idea there, by curving it on a miniature rolling pin, is to create the impression of a perfectly straight hand. That's the paradox. You have to curve it to make it look straight from most angles. Then we have a little rose gold aperture framing the pièce de résistance of this caliber 4021. This was Nataf's single greatest and most lasting contribution to luxury horology, creating skeletonized bridges and plates and an opening in the dial so you could see the escapement, the balance, the hairspring, and the fourth wheel of the drivetrain from the dial side of the watch. It's a lot of the pleasure of owning a tourbillon for about 10% of the price. I like to say 90% of the fun of a tourbillon at 10% of the price. Now, we also have a power reserve indicator down at 6 o'clock. The watch is an automatic winder, but you can wind it manually. It has 50 to 52 hours of power reserve, and being an El Primero, the escapement is particularly important because the 5 hertz or 10 beat per second El Primero escapement helps to define this series of chronographs. It's why you have a potentially higher accuracy, as the watch can resolve, 1/10 of a second rather than 1/8. It's also why the chronograph seconds hand is smoother sweeping, and why against the ear it has a higher beat rate. You can also see there is this extended fourth wheel pinion with a tri-spoke that acts as the constant seconds hand for the watch. Turning it all over, you can see more aversion to cost cutting. The rotor here is multiply finished. There are at least 4 finishes I can discern on that rotor, and it's made of 22 karat gold, not 21, not 18, and God help us, not tungsten rose gold plated. This is the real thing. It's a bidirectional winder because it's an El Primero. They wind bidirectionally, beats 10 beats per second, 36,000 vibrations per hour, pivots on 39 joules, and it is a column wheel lateral clutch chronograph, and you can see the column wheel in action along with the clutch, as well as the levers and horns of the chronograph system. You can see the recentering hammers fall right there to recenter the registers. The watch is nicely decorated, as even when the El Primero is principally mechanically decorated, it manages to be quite attractive with its combination of satination, engine turning, beveling, and both black polished and blued screws. Now, the timepiece is a lovely one and historically important, although it's very modern in its aesthetic. The El Primero back in 1969 was the first integrated automatic high-beat chronograph caliber, and it remains famous for that. So you get that legacy, as well as the legacy of the Chronomaster and the best of Nataf when you buy this watch. It's 30 meters water resistant, so don't take it swimming, but this is a rather sporty take on the dress watch with the chronograph, the tachymeter, the outsized proportions and dimensions. It's got a lot of personality. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.